Hello friends, and welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to talk about two creek bed projects. One is completed and one is just getting started. As you know, we have our youngest son Jackson. He does love the machinery, which really works to my favor. He is a great help in the garden, and both of these projects he has taken a great leadership role on them. The first one, the one that is completed, it was in a video, I don't know, a week or so ago, where I was spending the day. I worked up at the entrance and to the house and the garden center, and then down here at the creek. And this was the part of the project that I underestimated, and it was bigger than I had anticipated. So I enlisted Jackson to help me finish the project. I gave him my vision and he took control over it. I told you that I would come back once it is done. It is done. I cannot wait for you to see it. So we're going to look at that. And then he started a new project for me yesterday, way down there at the house. And you probably might hear a machinery here or there because he is down there. So we're going to go down there and look at that, talk about everything down there. So we're just going to spend a beautiful, gorgeous look at this sky. It's supposed to be like 80 today. I love it. Spring has definitely sprung here in North Carolina. So here we are. This bed just needed some love. So we'll throw up maybe some footage of what it looked like when I was in here earlier. But basically, it needs some attention. So we have this bed that, there's two beds actually. There's this is definitely the larger one. Obviously the house is here, and then you come around and then the garden center is right here. And then of course the signature garden. This bed we put in a couple of years ago just to create a nice, warm, welcoming environment for our customers, and it just needed some attention. So we're going to kind of walk through and show you what we have and what Jackson did. So along the tree line right here, we have some quick fire fabs. So I went ahead the other week and pruned them, right? So they're reblooming, or a panicle hydrangea that continuously blooms. It is one of the earliest blooming panicle hydrangeas. Nice moderate size. It's not going to be too big. It's in that like 4 to 6 foot range. Love them. So I pruned them, and then Jackson came in here and took out all the weeds for me and put down a nice layer of mulch. Went nice and back further, so that way we can easily maintain anything that should come up from the woods, whether it's honeysuckle or briars or grapevine. Keep them out of the quick fire fabs. And then coming around, this was just a mess because we are blessed with massive, massive tulip poplars. This one in particular is ginormous. It is, I don't even know how to say like how wide this thing is. As a child, growing up, it was large when I was a child, and that was 40-something years ago. So it is a huge one. But in the wintertime, it drops tons of little sticks and limbs. We've had a very, very windy winter and early spring, and so tons of limbs have fallen, and he went ahead and cleaned all that up for me. There was a bunch of weeds in here. Just got it all cleaned up. And so just looking so much better already. There is irrigation in here, so if you see some brown tubing, it's not snakes, it is just the irrigation that has popped up and it is exposed. These two flower beds are our annual planters. So we will fill these with beautiful summer annuals, give us loads of color in here. And it's a nice backdrop, or the bed is a nice backdrop to these annuals in here. I did plant, when we were in here the other week, I planted 3 of the flowerful hydrangeas. These hydrangeas, they are an arborescence, so they will, again, guaranteed to have flowers every year. Right now, they're just sticks. This would be like an improved Annabelle version, similar to like the Incredible hydrangea, if you're familiar with that. It's just by a different company, and so I wanted to try them out. We had them at the garden center, and so I said, well, let's just try them out, see how they do, and this would be a great bed to do it, because this bed is so interesting in the fact of that it gets great morning sun. It's actually about noon right now, so it is starting to go a little bit in the shade, so it definitely gets those 6 hours of sun that it needs. but then it gets a break from the intense hot afternoon sun, which will be perfect for these hydrangeas. When I was in here, I went ahead and pruned the Chindo viburnums. They had gotten so tall and kind of lanky, and then Jackson went ahead and limbed up the cedar tree, because here actually these Chindos and the cedar tree were actually touching each other. They were together, and so there goes Jerry. And so I limbed up the Chindos, or pruned the Chindos, and he limbed up the cedar. Now, already in less than, it's not even been a week since we filmed that video, look at all the new growth that is popping out on this. In fact, there goes Jackson. Maybe he needs to refuel, not sure why, but there he is. So he's leaving in the Bobcat excavator. But all this new growth on these Chindos looks, I mean, it's just going to be fantastic. So that's a great thing about pruning your shrubs is, yes, I want these to get tall, but I want them to stay nice and thick and full. And so that's why we prune. Like, this was the first time I've pruned it maybe ever, which is probably not that good. But if you do prune them once a year at the absolute maximum, maybe if it's every 2 years, you can do that. That way, again, nice, thick, tight, compact growth on it, and not too tall and lanky and you know, open on it. Now, the big thing, the part that I love about what Jackson did for me is that he took the excavator and he was able to come and drive through. I think it was the excavator, or you know what? It may have been the little Bobcat. I'm not sure. Anyway, he was able to come through right here, and he cleaned up this entire spot behind the viburnums along the creek bank. It looks so good. This is what I envisioned the creek bank to look like, neat and tidy. The problem that we have here, like, you know, I guess so many other parts, is that we are blessed with long growing seasons and abundant rain here. And so we are very, very green, right, in the southeast. But you have things that grow crazy that maybe they shouldn't be here, like honeysuckle or heaven forbid kudzu. We actually have a little bit of kudzu on the other side of where we're going to go right now. Those are things that we don't want growing wild and crazy in our gardens. We have grapevine that grows here as well, and then of course the briars. So those are the things that I want to get rid of. I don't want those there. I want my beautiful native trees and ferns and all those perennials that naturally should be here and pop up in the gardens. That's what I want. So when I say that I would love for the creek bank to look like this, what I'm saying is I want anything that does not belong here to go away. So what we can do is, now that it's all nice and clean, and of course he put down a beautiful thick layer of mulch, we can maintain that. So when the briars come back, or the honeysuckle, or anything that shouldn't be here, we can easily see it and we can eliminate it. Now, he did not go down here because, as you know, we tend to have some raging water, you know, a couple of times a year. Not that it has to always overflow, but it will get nice and thick. So there was no point in him taking the mulch all the way down, because it would just end up getting washed away. So this area, could not love it more, could not be more proud. It just looks amazing. Before we know it, it'll probably be about 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month, probably not even a month, that we will go ahead and plant our summer annuals. We'll go ahead and get those planted. We just need to really wait until our last frost date, and our last frost date for us is mid-April. All right, so that is a great recap of the progress that has been made. That bed is done until we plant those summer annuals. So now let's head on to the other side of the road and take a look at the new project that is happening. Welcome to the backyard, my friends. And so this view, a lot of you are very familiar with, right? We adore our backyard. We spend a lot of time back here. It is a beautiful, peaceful, quiet sanctuary. But there is always more to be done, right? There are always projects to be had. And so what we're going to be focusing on, this has been a project that has had many beginnings, projects, pieces of it. Like we've been here many, many times, but never really committed to these gardens. And I am determined to commit to this garden because what I'm talking about is this section. It is quite a long section along the creek bank. So in case you're wondering, we get our name Creekside Nursery because the creek literally cuts our property. And so it goes through the entire property. Typically, it is a lovely, sleepy little creek, right? It is a sweet, sweet creek. I grew up here, so I grew up playing in this creek, and it is just a lovely, again, typically a very quiet little creek. This one, right on cue, loves to run and play in the creek. The warmer it gets, the more she spends time in the creek. So we have these, you know, banks on the creek that are on both sides. Obviously, the nursery's on one side, the house is on the other side. As an interesting little note, can you see, because of the storms that we've had in the last year, the amount of erosion that has happened here? Jackson is concerned about it because there's certain areas that we have a lot of erosion, and it's simply because when the water comes through, it is just churning in certain areas and as it goes down. But I digress. Anyway, so we have what we're going to be focusing on is the flower bed that goes along the creek on the house side. So it's not a very wide bed. In the widest part, it may be 30 feet, and that's only for a small amount of time. Typically, it's just like maybe a 10 or a 12 foot wide bed that runs for a very long time. And so, of course, like I said, North Carolina, we are, if you stand still long enough, something's going to climb on you. Something's going to regrow, right? So it is a very lush environment, and nature is always trying to put out new growth, which we love, which is great. But when you're trying to do a garden and when you're trying to keep the aggravating stuff out, it can be kind of frustrating. So we have a lot right here in the creek, on the creek bank rather. This, whatever this is, I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's some type of like wild ligustrum. I don't know, but it is, as you can see through here, it is all up in this area. So what Jackson's going to do is just kind of come through and then just clean it up. If there are any limbs that are hanging over, he is going to trim those. Now, we do have several native dogwoods here. They're small. They're not anything like majorly spectacular, but obviously we're going to leave them. So this is one right here. And then you can see down a little bit further, there is another one. When we built our house 21 years ago, we before we even built the house, we came through here, Jerry and I did, and cleaned up. Like we would come every Saturday for I don't know how many months, and we started at one end and we worked our entire way because the creek was absolutely covered. The trees were covered in grapevine and honeysuckle and briars, and we cleaned it out. Maybe if we took down some trees, it was trees that were like obviously like growing at a 90-degree angle, right? That just had no future. But we didn't take out trees. We were just trying to clean it up. And so that's what we're trying to come back to do again, is to clean it up. And then that way we can add plants to it and make it a beautiful, really a beautiful, primarily shade woodland garden. Because the way that the sun works is the sun comes up right here. So this gets some great, beautiful sun early in the morning, 5 hours at the max, I would say, and then is definitely in the shade. So I have lots of opportunities for a woodland shade garden here. It is not on any kind of irrigation, and there's really only a few plants that are absolutely staying. So a collection of those are these azaleas. So we have, I think it's three clumps of the azaleas. So we have this massive one right here, then kind of where Brenna's going, there's a second one, and then way down on the end, there is a third one. If you're familiar with Mimi's garden, Mimi is my mama who lives under a dry shade, tons of pine trees. She has old azaleas that my grandmother had gotten her before I was even born. So these are old azaleas, y'all. So she gave us some pieces of her azaleas, and then they've been here for the 21 years, and hence we have these massive azaleas. Now, these are those old-timey azaleas. They only bloom in the spring. They're once and they're done. They're for the shade, but I love them. I love them. So they are definitely staying. They are not going to leave under any circumstances, and they are going to be here for a very long time. So Jackson and I walked through yesterday and talked about this. So we have that same, whatever that is. If you know what this is, you know, you can tell me. But like right in the middle of the azalea is that thing growing that I was showing you before. Obviously, it's just now leafing out. But yeah, it is growing right smack dab in the middle. And then we have something else that's growing here in the middle. So this just needs a lot of love. There is honeysuckle growing in here, and then there were some briars in here as well. So this is going to be a project that is going to take some time, because these guys are going to want to keep coming back, right? The briars are the ones that run by runners. So Jackson has been tasked with cleaning this up for me, doing that initial task. And of course, he loves anything, any project that involves machinery. And especially if he can get on the excavator, then he like signed the boy up. He loves it. And he's really, really good at the excavator. He's good at all the machinery, but the excavator is like his weapon of choice, shall we say. So he came in here, started yesterday, and was just cleaning up. So just kind of digging out, just scraping the surface, trying to get those little pesky trees out that were not directly in the azaleas, the ones that are in the azaleas. Like for example, right here, this was a little bit too close for him to grab the root. So what he did is he came in with his chainsaw, he cut it, and then painted it with the brush and stump killer. That way it will kill it. We can leave it right here, and we don't have to worry about it affecting this azalea. Now, coming back through on the back side, because primarily, you know, everything is working its way from the creek and kind of creeping in to the bed. You will notice that I have this huge clump outcropping of these gorgeous Lenten roses, these hellebores. These are from Mimi again. Mimi has tons of these in her garden. And these are the ones, the old-timey ones that drop seed and spread. So if you can see in here, all the little green that's on the ground, those are all little tiny baby hellebores that are in there. There is some of the junk stuff, obviously, again, that's growing in here that we need to get rid of. But this started out like as, I don't know, maybe 3 hellebores, and this is a really beautiful, nice patch of them. So I told Jackson, I was like, don't do anything with those. We'll get in here and clean this up. But I definitely want those to stay. And when I tell you that I have done absolutely nothing with these hellebores for 20-something years, I'm telling you, I've done nothing. Like, I don't prune them, I don't fertilize them. I really forget that they're here 10 months out of the year, and then when they're blooming, I'm like, oh yes, they're gorgeous. So that's the deal on that. So what he was doing is, as he was scraping out, he's making piles. And then that is, of course, if you know my husband, he has always been a huge fan of grass. He loves a good green lawn. And so because we live, this piece of the property is 3 acres that the house sits on. And so we built our house in the middle of a field, and we had some major erosion happening. So the best way, the quickest way to prevent the erosion is to get beautiful, green, healthy grass growing. So we can have water that rushes through it in the storms, but we don't get any erosion because we have such a nice stand of grass. So Jerry was like, Jackson, you cannot drive a ton of machinery on the grass because it will tear it up in a heartbeat. And we just had a beautiful rain the other day, and so it's nice and damp. So he has to be very careful driving the machinery on the grass. So he's been driving back and forth in the flower bed, which works great because that's the construction zone. So for now, he's making those piles of the debris. Once it dries up, he will bring the work truck here, the dump truck, load it all up, and then just drive out with it. Now, the section that you see right here, that is bare soil. Yes, that is our beautiful red clay. This is actually kind of looks really good because we've got some good topsoil here over the years that has come down here. So this actually is very pretty as far as our soil goes. This was another area that has just kind of gotten out of control. This had tons of Japanese anemones in it. Again, came from my mama. A great perennial that naturalizes, and it was stunning and gorgeous, but because of neglect on our part, the briars came in, the little trees were coming in, things that didn't belong here. So I told Jackson, I was like, we're gonna have to sacrifice the Japanese anemones in order to get rid of everything else. And in fact, we think, because there was a pretty good stand of briars here, that these briars are the culprit for the briars that I have in the flower bed right here, because they go by runners. That's the only thing I can think of, because we did not bring any soil in for there, but we have these horrible briars, and they're the same kind. So we've got to get rid of those. Those are something you cannot have in your garden at all. Y'all fuss about barberries? You ain't seen nothing except the thorns on these things. They are just mean briars. So cleaned it all out, and then what the plan is once everything's cleaned up, we'll come back and put mulch down, so obviously we don't get erosion, and makes it look neater. Also, as things pop back up, those briars, that honeysuckle, any kind of tree little saplings, we can easily spot them and get rid of them. And so that way we can then turn this into a beautiful that woodland garden, because there is tons of potential right through here. This is going to be our main area that we're going to be adding in plants. It's going to be right in here, because we just have those little bit of azaleas there. So this is where we're really going to be focusing on putting the perennials, the shrubs, all those fun things, because even underneath this pile right here, we have got a lot of available real estate that we can use. Now, this tree, shrub, is a mock orange. Again, came from my mama. Can you notice a theme here with all of these like shade-loving plants? Yeah. So mama gave me this shrub, like long time ago. Again, planted it, neglected it, left it alone. She did bloom in her early days when I took care of her. So I told Jackson, I said, leave it. So what we'll do is prune it really well, fertilize it, take care of it, keep all of the nuisance stuff out of it, so that way she can regrow, and then for this time next year, she should be glorious. And so she is definitely well established now, so we don't want to mess with her. We just need to give her some love. So that's that mock orange. And then through here, we have some irises. There's about 3 clumps of the irises. Again, came from my mama. My kids, I don't remember which child it was, grabbed them from mama. She was thinning out. Mama gave them some, and they came down here and probably just literally threw them down. And so these are things that we can lift up. They've never flowered because they're too far deep, and they've been buried, and they're too far, into the flower bed. So we can lift those and bring them up and have them more closer to the front and take care of those. I do have a couple of old-timey macrophylla hydrangeas. Y'all, these hydrangeas, when I say these are like old hydrangeas, these are old hydrangeas. I have no clue what variety they are at all. They're just that great macrophylla hydrangea, classic hydrangea blooms. They tend to be nice and blue here because we're very acidic, and you don't want to prune them, right? So we just put them down here, let them get nice and big and thick and full, and they bloom like crazy. I have 2 of them down here. They used to be, when we first moved, they were up by the house along the driveway. Well, they got zapped every year, moved them down here, and they are living their best life and absolutely love it. Other than the fact that we have some honeysuckle and the pesky stuff trying to overtake them. So this is honeysuckle. I say it's the native. It's not technically the native, y'all. It's the wild honeysuckle. I know it's not native, but when I say native, I'm saying about the stuff that's everywhere, right? That grows, has the flowers, smells divine. I have a love-hate relationship with this plant. And so obviously we got to get that out. And then you can see we have got the briars. Like that is a nasty, mean briar. So we'll have to come down here at the bottom, cut it, paint it, kill it, and not hurt the hydrangea. With your macrophylla hydrangeas, what you can do is you can see where we have blooms from last year. So when I say don't prune them, you still have that head. So what you can do is come in here and just snip off the head. You can see we've got green growth right here. So that's where the new flowers are gonna be. We would just snip that off, clean it up. So this is where I will come in and do some fine tidying up and cleaning. Jackson is just coming in here and doing the main brunt of the work for me and taking care of it. So that is like the section closest to the house. When I tell you this is a long bed, this is a very long bed. So that's where the other hydrangea is. And then the last group of the azaleas are right here. Working on this yesterday and already looks so good. Again, cleaning out the junk, y'all. Just cleaning it up. And then he has his pile right here. As we come down, remember I told you that we have a section that has kudzu in it? Yep, well, that is right up here. So as we come closer to back like towards the nursery, this is where we kind of run into, quote, some trouble. So I have three, it's very hard to see them, they're probably like little brown sticks right now, 3 of the Invincible Ruby hydrangeas. They love this spot, they bloom, and they are absolutely gorgeous because they have those color specific, nice ruby flowers on them. Perfect area for them. They get enough sun to flower, but they don't burn. So we have those, and then as we come on down, this is where we have our limelight hydrangeas with the butterfly bushes in the front. The butterfly bushes are coming out. There's just not enough sun for them. They just do not perform well. So they are coming out. The limelights are staying. They get enough sun. You can see covered in those old blooms. So they definitely do really well right here. Where we are dealing with some of the kudzu is in this bank portion right here. And it actually, where Brenna is standing, that's where it has started to creep out. So kudzu is absolutely horrible. It will take over the trees in an absolute heartbeat. It's like you can sit there and watch it grow. So if you know you have kudzu, you have to go to literally the root, you cut it, and you can pour. I know it's the R word is an absolute like cuss word in gardening, but you can absolutely pour Roundup straight on that cut. And you will have to do that multiple times in order to get rid of the kudzu. It is that horrible of a plant. We will have to watch that kudzu and so make sure that that stays under control and that we can eliminate that. So what he did is he brought the excavator back here and was kind of the same as he did on the other side and just clearing that out. The kudzu, I don't know exactly, we haven't figured out exactly where it originated, somewhere right there where Brenna is. And so we just need to make sure we take care of that and keep it out because if it gets in the trees, we are definitely going to be in trouble. So that, my friends, there is a lot going on down here. All right, come on, B. And so we, mainly this season, my goal is to be able to maintain what Jackson is doing, maintain like the cleanliness factor because we are battling the briars, the kudzu. We've got grapevine in here, various places, and then whatever that noxious little thing is that keeps coming back, we've got to make sure that we can take care of that because I don't want to then clear this bed out and then fill it with all these plants and you don't really get rid of that root problem, and then it's just an absolute nightmare. So that's what we're working on now. Clean up, get it mulched, and maintain it this season. Now, the only plant that I know that I'm going to be planting in here This year are my Fairy Trail Bride hydrangeas, because I've got 2 of them in the backyard bed and that I have to redesign. So where the forsythias are, there are 2 Fairy Trails. They do not do well there because I think they get too much sun, and then they get zapped with that last, freeze of the year. And if I move them in here to the woodland garden, they'll be much more protected and taken care of. So I will choose a spot that they can go. I'm actually thinking kind of behind where the gas tank is, back there, and place them back there. They're well protected, they'll get enough sun, but there's not a lot of noxious stuff growing right there, so they should be good to go. But yeah, you know us here at Creekside, there is always something going on, my friends. There's not a project going on, there is a whole list of projects going on at one time. So, might as well be doing something, We'll rest when we're in heaven, but while we're here, we're gonna work and have fun, and it is enjoyable, especially when you get to do it with your whole family. As always, we hope you found this fun, informative, and inspirational. If you have, we would love it if you would like and subscribe to Garden with Creekside so you don't miss all the fun, crazy adventures that happen here at the house and at the nursery. Y'all have an amazing day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.